Hello and welcome to Information Paradise. Today we have Seth Kostek with us. Welcome, Seth, to the channel.
Hey, thanks for having me. I love to talk about this stuff, so any chance I get to talk about it, this is what I like to do. So
we've got a very nice change here. We have a scientific background here, so it's pretty cool. We're attacking from both sides.
Well, I think that's the cool thing that's starting to happen is that science and spirituality are kind of like coming together. Mm-hmm. They're both talking about the same being here, and they're just taking a look at it from two different perspectives. But there's only one being here, so it's the only being that you can talk about. So everybody's just talking about, but it's like it seems like it's finally coming together. So it's a very exciting time. This is fun times. I'm very happy to be here right now.
I mean, it couldn't really be any other way, could it?
Correct, because all ways are simultaneously happening right now. Every way this being could be is happening. It's just that we're ignoring those ways that we're not knowing right now, and we're paying attention to the way that is happening. But all ways are simultaneously happening. So this is a perfection. You can't go wrong. You can't do the wrong thing because all being is this infinite totality. It's just that you're ignoring an infinite set of it and just paying attention to these finite limits that interfere within concepts to produce the illusion of finite content. So you're right. It is. There are no like wrong paths in life. It couldn't be any other way. It is this way, and there are all other ways. If you want to know some way different than this way, you are free to explore them. You're free to walk around here on your own infinite being and see other parts of your infinite being as the illusion of finite. So if you don't like the way your life is going, if you don't like that way, fine. You're all knowing. You can know a different way. You just have to ask, okay, what would I do to know a different way? I don't like having an extra 30 pounds on me here. Oh, how would I know to change that? Oh, okay, I got to know some starvation and some exercise, some pain, and then then now I got six-pack abs. See, so you can know any path in life that you want to. You just have to know your way to it.
I think the most fascinating part about that's what you just did there. The method by which we can know is imagination. You know, so like you were like, what would it be like to not have these 30 pounds on me? We can imagine anything.
Correct. You are in the imagination right now, the imagination of consciousness. Consciousness is making these images out of its infinite potential and then knowing them as the illusion of these finite objects. So you're in the imagination, and while in the imagination, you've imagined thoughts that you're knowing that are saying, hey, I can imagine this stuff. And then you're knowing that thought. See, this thing is amazing. I mean, it's once you start really digging into it, you can sort of like take back the power that you forgot about. And you can really do anything. It's just that being able to do anything means you're going to have to give up limits that restrict you. So like if I want to fly, right? A human being can't just like flap his wings and fly, right? Because knowing being a human being means knowing that you can't fly like that. Mm-hmm. So if I want to fly like this, I gotta give up being a human being. I would have to like kill myself and then be reincarnated as a bird, and then I could fly around like that. Nobody wants to do that. So what do we do? Okay, well, how would a human fly? Birds fly like this. Humans, they get in a plane and then they can fly. That's how humans fly. So humans can fly. It's just They don't fly like birds fly, just like a duck doesn't fly like a hummingbird flies or like a bee flies. Each thing flies in its own way because it's limited to that way. You give up the limits and you can do anything, but people are very attached to their limits, right? Nobody wants to die. so that's what makes, if you have negative behaviors that you don't like, well, you're trying to change them, but then trying to hold on to them. It's like, I really want to give up drinking, right? I don't like the way I'm drinking all the time, but I love being drunk. It's like, I don't want to give up drinking, but I love drinking. If people are doing these things, these counterproductive things, they don't want to give up the limits that they're holding on to get to some future aspiration that they have for themselves. So that's the really thing, is you just have to take a cold, hard look at what you're doing and seeing what you're knowing. And because this thing is an interference pattern of concepts, all the concepts that you're knowing are interfering with each other and producing this interference pattern that is your life. So if you don't like the way your life is going, oh, it's all negative, it's because you're thinking negative thoughts, or you're bringing negativity into your life. You've got to give that up so that it's not interfering with the entire universe, so that you can live the life that you want. But it might just be the life that you want was to be negative. You just didn't realize that. Oh, I like this negativity. I like saying that's no good, and oh, I can't believe that guy did that over there. And you might really enjoy that. People enjoy complaining.
Sense of power, right?
I think, it all leads back to a sense of self. Like, you have a sense of existing. So the word exist is from Latin, and it means to stand outside of. It doesn't mean being. So humans, or consciousness knowing being a human, these humans, we want to stand outside of consciousness, to seem like we are a physical material being outside of consciousness, where consciousness would be in here, and then, oh no, I exist outside of that consciousness. Consciousness is contained within me, and I exist outside of it. Oh, look, I really exist. I'm really here. That's what people want to do. But see, it's the reverse. No, you're in consciousness. You don't exist outside of it. You're in it as it. You're the being of consciousness, knowing this content. You don't exist. You are being, but you don't exist outside of consciousness. And so, I have to say inside of consciousness, but there is no outside of consciousness. It's an inside with no outside. So it's not like there's an inside of consciousness and then there's an outside of consciousness somewhere. No, anything outside of consciousness would be consciousness. There's no outside. So it's hard to talk about this, because I can only use dualistic constructs within this mind of consciousness's imagination. I can only use those to describe it. But there is only consciousness here. And so, people hold on to these things. They want to complain. It's because it makes them feel like they exist outside of consciousness, like they're really here. If I'm hurting, if I'm suffering, I must really be here. I must really exist because I'm feeling pain, right? I burned my hand on the stove. That means I'm really alive. Sometimes you'll find in life the most alive you can feel is when you've had a brush with death. You were going too fast on a curve in the car, and I almost went off this cliff. The heart's pumping. It's like, I feel alive, I think a lot of people, they play sports, these rough contact sports, and they get hit. It's like they feel alive. They feel like it's real, like this is happening. And so this suffering or pain, it gives you this sense of existence. But again, what is that pain? What is it made out of? If you took the knowing of that pain away, or the knowing of that physical contact, there would be nothing left to it, because it's made of that knowing. There's nothing to anything other than the knowing of it. So I think that's why we do these things, because it's a fun little respite from your infinite totality. Because you see, once you start really coming up against your own infinite being, once you stop ignoring it, it's hard to take. it's not what you think it is. It's too much. It's too much. You can't face it. You're ignoring yourself on purpose, because this thing is infinite. You will not survive it. So this being that we are is just so magnificent. It's so beyond anything I could describe to you, that when you come up against it, you can see why you're ignoring it, because you're just I can't even tell you. It's like an insanity. But in some weird sense, this here is the insanity. This is the craziest thing. Once you realize what you really are, you're like, this is insane. Having a body and having to eat and all this. This is crazy. Having to go to work, having a job, and like worrying about stuff. This is a crazy. You realize that this is really the insanity. But from our point of view, when you're trying to grasp the infinite through the limiting activity structure of the mind, consciousness seems like an insanity, and you can't actually do it. You'll go crazy. You have to give up the mind. You have to let go. When you let go, again, it's still hard to. It's still you're infinite. I don't know how. I think, see, the problem with the word infinite is that we as consciousness, going through these perspectives, we think infinite means large, or we think infinitesimal means small. No, this has nothing to do with size. Infinite means unlimited. That without boundaries, no edge to it, no ground. So it's like, that sensation of like when I don't know, have you ever jumped out of a plane?
No.
Oh, you should do it. Because you'll get this sensation of the gravity of it. You get this pull, it's this pull towards no ground. Well, yeah, the infinite has no ground. And that feeling is just overwhelming. You're like, whew, and people love it. It's thrilling, right? But it's that lack of being grounded that's kind of terrifying as the infinite. So it's just, when you talk about infinite, you just have to realize that you're talking about no boundaries. You're talking about no edges, no surface, no thing. So people often confuse consciousness or non-duality with nothing, with nothingness. Now, I know what they're trying to say. It's not a thing. It's no thing. But it's not nothing as opposed to something. It's not a concept of nothing something. It's just not a thing that could be grasped. So it's if nothing was a limit within the concept of nothing that equals nothing, then this knowing would be even emptier or more nothing than that, because this is something. It's made out of something. There's something over here and there's nothing over here. This nothing is made out of this something. But the infinite totality of consciousness that's making both of these opposites is the real empty nothing that's containing all that. So I can see why they say nothing, but it's an emptiness past nothing that you can't even talk about. So, and people will confuse this with nihilism. It's not nothing as in nihilistic, because see, there isn't no thing here. The thing here is not a thing. It's a being that is infinite consciousness. So there's only infinite consciousness, and it can't go anywhere because it's infinite, and it can't start or stop because it's infinite. It's not limited to starting and stopping. So you can't have nihilism because there's always consciousness. So there's never nothing. And you can't escape it. You can't get out of it. You will always be. If you're being now and consciousness is infinite, then you could never stop or start. And you can't go anywhere. The only thing you can do is know. You're being. You're a knowing being. What could that knowing being know? Well, what's the only thing here? Knowing. So the only thing is, when you say the words, I am conscious, you're simultaneously saying is like, oh, I'm conscious of this fist. I am knowing that there is a fist object there. But you're simultaneously saying, I am conscious. Oh, my identity, who I really am, is conscious. Just like I say, I am Seth. Well, no, I'm saying I am conscious. So I am conscious. Okay, well, I am this knowing. And then what can this know? It can know being. Well, what's this being? The being is knowing. So it's just this infinite knowing being knowing. So the only power it has is to know. And so that's how it makes the illusion of all this content. It knows some potential, and it says, what is this potential made out of? What is this whole thing made out of? Oh, it's made out of knowing that it's not this over here. So now I've got this little this, that, which is an infinite concept. It's not graspable. You can't understand it. You know, touch this, that left shoulder of yours. This, that left shoulder, you know, or touch this, that, you know, wall. Well, which wall? This one or that one? You can't grasp it because the entire concept is made of knowing these opposites. So since these concepts are infinite, then what consciousness has to do is it has to composite them together. By multiplying concepts together, it can then pay attention to this over here and ignore that. And now we've got this little game, the game of ignorance. We can ignore limits and focus on things. So you can think of this like with the black and white, black, white, and circle not equal circle. So circle not equal circle, I don't know what that would be. Like what kind of shape would circle? Draw me a circle not equal circle. You couldn't draw it. Just like you couldn't draw me black, white. What is black, white? I could know black and I could know white, but black, white, I don't know what that is. But now if I take black, white times circle not equal circle, well, now I can focus on a black circle and ignore a white not circle. You see, now I can make an object out of it that has an edge to it. And so that's what consciousness is doing. It's interfering these concepts within its conscious singularity. It's knowing every single concept simultaneously and ignoring a whole infinite set of them. It's paying attention to them, and then you think you're you're human with hands and feelings and thoughts and things. And so it's quite amazing, and all of this is in our physics already. So all I did was just tweak it a little bit, and I'm working on actually rewriting my paper, and hopefully coming up with like 3 more episodes, and to finish off my first season on my YouTube channel, and then hopefully publish this paper somewhere. But if it doesn't get accepted anywhere, then I'll just put it on the website. And
yeah, man.
The episode, the final season for the finale for the season will be episode 10, and it'll be on the paper, and that will be a very long, maybe 4-hour episode. I might have to do it in 2 parts because it's just gonna be too long for people to handle, and that will explain the paper. So hopefully that's coming out in the next couple of months. I do have a job, so so I'm not like sitting here just making episodes. So I wish I could do that. That would be fun. But my job is cool. So
what is your job, by the way?
Oh, I'm the vice president of Santa Clara System. So I'm in the sort of the industrial automation sector, and we keep America running.
That's cool, man.
We keep all your power on and your refineries running and your clean water, all the stuff that you love in life here, all the little things that make it fun and easy and nice. Nobody wants to drink contaminated water, and everybody wants power. So, so yeah, we do that. We have a great group of people. So it makes going to work like a playground. Like every day, it's really not work. I just play all day.
Dude, that's so cool, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much do you know about spiral dynamics?
A little bit. I haven't read. I don't know the authors. I don't have the author's name. But they're like Dutch or something, right?
Claire Graves is the name I know.
Okay. I don't know much about it. I've heard some stuff, just from being at these conferences and things like that. But I know that there are like these stages, and they say like consciousness is sort of like evolving to, something. They go through these stages, and they're colored. So I think there's like I don't know, blue or purple or red, and then orange and yellow and green, and they have these yellow or turquoise stages that are like, yo, you're enlightened or something, right? So, I mean, it's a cool model and everything. It's just the thing that that's really going on here, and it's just very hard for people to wrap the mind around. You can't really wrap it around. Is that consciousness is not evolving. You see, it's not evolving. It's not learning anything. It's not doing this to learn anything. You see,
No.
It's all knowing. It already knows everything. It's infinite. What it's doing is it's precisely the opposite. It's not learning stuff. It's ignoring itself. The more we go into all these scientific theories, it's the more diluted we're getting, right? See, it's everything we're doing that we're seeing finite objects, we're ignoring that infinite consciousness. So consciousness is ignoring itself to play here. It's not evolving into higher consciousness. How much higher than infinite can you get? You can't. It's already all there. Okay, so you can think of it as like, okay, you brought up the imagination. So, okay, instead of consciousness evolving, because it's not, consciousness is imagining these little human beings walking around. And these things are stupid. They're doing all kinds of dumb things to each other. And maybe, there'll be this stage red, and they'll be so dumb, and they'll do all this stupid stuff. Okay, and then maybe they'll get a little bit more evolved and get technology and stuff, and they'll be stage orange. And then, okay, and then they'll realize that, making money and exploiting resources and just to live life better, that wasn't really important. But the important stuff was this consciousness stuff. And the really enlightened masters, you got to aspire to these stage turquoise guys. Yeah, that's how these humans, they would evolve their consciousness, and they get up there, and then they'd realize they're the whole thing. Yeah, so that's like a little playground imagination for consciousness to like pretend it's humans doing all this thing, and you could say, yeah, these humans evolved, and they evolved their yeah, that's fine. But that's just a fantasy. That's just a consciousness's little fantasy here. It's a little playground. It's a little, I don't know, movie that it's watching. So it's not actually what's here. Actually, what's here is infinite consciousness, all knowing, knowing everything. Doesn't need to do any of this stuff to know anything. It can do anything it wants because it's all knowing. It already knows everything. There's nothing it can do to know any more than it knows. It's infinite. You can't know more than the infinite. Once you have infinite knowing, this is all there is. So I think that's just the confusion with it. Is that people, they think that they are these humans containing consciousness that then evolves consciousness. No, this is totally backwards. You're inside the singularity, guys. I don't know if you know this guy named Michael Mead, but I follow him on Twitter, and he tweeted out something, which is a good one. It's something like, I've been knocking on the door, to find out who I am, knocking, and I realized I was knocking from the inside. I was already in there. And that's a quote from Rumi or something, right? It's like, I was knocking on the door like, hey, let me in, infinite conscious, let me in. And wait a minute, I'm on the inside of the house.
That's crazy.
When you realize that, you're like,
yeah.
It's like another guy that's really cool. His name is Noel. and he's on YouTube. He's on Twitter too, and I think his channel might be Absolute Awareness or something like that. And he had this great little analogy of a prison. Like, you're in a prison of your own mind here, but the prison door has been open the whole time. You could have just walked right out. You could walk out any time, but you're just sitting in your prison cell like, oh, I'm serving a 30-year sentence here. It's that crazy. And I guess that's what they call like the gateless gate, right? There's a gate, but there's no gate. There's no actual gate there. The gate is what you're doing. You're making this illusion of being trapped here, precisely because you want to ignore your infinite being. So you're like, no, I like this little trap. I like being trapped here. And then you forget. Oh my God, I forgot that I trapped myself. So what am I gonna do? I feel trapped. I gotta get out of here. Then you try to get out of there, and you realize when you hit this thing, you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, I realize I wanted that trap. I realize I want the game. I want to ignore my being on purpose because I'm too much. I'm too much to handle. I'm a little much here. So you find this out, and I think this is something that I'm going to talk about in my next episode a little bit, but this is something that I don't think the sages or people that have had these like enlightenment experiences, I don't think this is something they talk about. It's like, no, when you awaken, you realize you didn't want to awaken. This is sort of a mistake. Like, it's like, oh, no, you don't want to go there. So, people are like, how have they, you see these people, it's so funny. It's like, you see them at these conferences, like, and I have compassion for them. I'm not trying to like laugh at them, but it's like, I've been meditating for 20 years and I still haven't glimpsed it. It's like, it's very funny because if they did glimpse it, they would realize like that was 20 years of effort that they could have been doing other things. Because they'll it'd be 20 years of doing this, and then they'd hit it, and they'd be like, I shouldn't have been doing that. I should have been playing around, having a good time.
Yeah.
For some, the good time was meditating. Man, they find that fun. It's great. I used to do it. It was fun when I was doing it. And then I gave it up. I just don't find it fun anymore, so I don't do it. So, I do this. I think a lot of people do this. Like, we ebb and flow between these polar opposites, right? I mean, right now it's what? The first of the year. Well, guess what I'm doing? I'm back in the gym. I'm eating well. I think I've ate more vegetables in the last week than I did all year. I'm hitting the weights. I feel great. And then eventually, that'll tail off. And then again, it'll be hitting the booze and eating candy. These are just kind of, it's fun to play in the extremes a bit, but I think, walking that middle line, that middle path or whatever, that's probably, the most logical place to live your life. And then you're sort of grounded in the middle of your own being, and you're not going to these extremes. But sometimes it's fun to explore the extremes, and explore the differences. And you're here to ignore yourself. So have a good time, enjoy this illusion of fun. It's amazing. Like, once you start really seeing it, like, you take a shower and the water's hitting and you're just like, thank you for water. Thank you for warm water. I take a lot of cold showers. So when I treat myself with a warm shower, it's like, oh, it's so good. It feels so good. Just enjoy these feelings, enjoy the sensations, enjoy the sights. Go to museums, look at the art. Like, this stuff is amazing. I mean, even just your hand is just art right here. Just your fingertips and the perfection of it. The perfection of having 5 fingers to grasp something. This is absolutely amazing stuff. So just enjoy it. Like, enjoy life. And it's okay if you want to enjoy the suffering and terrible things too. Like, it's fine to bang your head against the wall and be frustrated. You're enjoying that frustration. At the time you don't see it, but if you ever do get to the point where you can kind of take a zoomed out view of it, you'll look at like, wow, it was really fun to know frustration, because when I'm not frustrated, you don't even know what frustration is. You don't even know how nice it is to not be frustrated if you were never frustrated. Once you're not frustrated, you're like, oh yes, this not being frustrated is really good. Whew, that frustration, that's for the birds. But you would never know that unless you were to have been frustrated once. So this is the fun of it. It's like to explore all these things, try to walk that middle path, but then explore the extremes so that you can know how nice it is to not be in one of them or the other. So this is it's a perfection. I mean, I love this. I love it. I mean, I just love life. Like it's so great to be alive. Like it's so fun.
Dude, especially 2020 technology.
Well, 2020, this is my year to see. This is clarity, right? We're going to get some of that 2020 vision this year, I think. People start waking up.
Yeah,
there's all these little double entendres and jokes in here. Like, you've laid them all out for yourself. You've already imagined all of this, you see. It's all simultaneously happening. It's all imagined. So there are no coincidences because everything's all pre-thought out. Consciousness has thought of everything. It's not thought it, it's knowing it. And so you hit these little synchronicities in life and you see the significance of these things because it's already all an interconnected web of concepts as your own being that then you interfere when you pay attention to them with certain limits, then you can make that being appear finite. But it's all here. So there's all these little double entendres and like hidden little gems in this world that are just spectacular once you start paying attention to them. And so 2020 is one of these things. It's like, hey, there's 2020 vision, and it's the year 2020, and I think we're gonna get some clarity. I really do. I mean, if the world doesn't get clarity, fine. But I have gotten clarity myself. Like I've rewritten this paper. And I feel like hopefully maybe someone will understand it. I don't know. I'm not a very good writer, so stuff's hard for me. Although I could know, see, this is another thing. It's like, I'm not a good writer, right? Okay, well, how would I know being a better writer? I could go to writing school. I could take courses. I could go to YouTube and learn I could write every night. And I would know becoming a better writer, right? I could. Yeah, I just don't want to do that. I'm too busy, so I'm gonna get lazier. So, but this is the power that you have. This is the power. You have the power to get what you want. It just may take time from your current position within the singularity. Like in the singularity, I'm over here, and I want to get to over here. Well, I mean, I gotta go this way, and then I screwed up, I backtrack. Oh, then I come there, I made it. Okay, well that might take 20 years for some people. Some people they can just teleport right there. I don't know how they do it, but you're in some sort of some position in the singularity as these concepts, and then from that position you have to know your way to the position you want to be in. And there's a lot of trial and error there, because to know you can't conceptualize you can't think your way or logic your way to it. You have to experience your way to it. That's why that's why sports teams practice, because you need controlled failure. You need to fail over and over and again in a controlled environment when the match is not on the line, so that when the match is on the line, you've already failed. You already know all the ways not to do something. And how do you know them? You didn't think about them on the sideline. You actually did them. You passed the ball the wrong way. You put too much force on it. You didn't train hard enough. So you were exhausted. Hey, you learn all this stuff. Now you learn, I got to train harder because I can't run for 90 minutes in a match if If we go to overtime or penalty kicks or whatever, right? I need some endurance there. I'm spent. Oh, okay, so I got to work out harder. Or I put too much force on the ball. I overshoot my left winger all the time. Oh, okay, I learned that in practice. Now in the game, I put the exact amount of force on it that I need to. So that's what controlled failure. That's what practice is. You need to experience your way to the goal that you want to reach.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And within the limits that you have, you can't trade your body out. So you got to build your body up or know your way to conditioning it or something. So that's all, I mean, I don't know what you want to talk about here, but
I got some questions here, actually.
Okay, yeah. Ask away, ask questions. So just understand in all questions and all answers, if you believe these words coming out of my mouth, that's not going to do anything for you, right? So yes. You have to know, you can't believe. Now, you can take the words that I'm saying and say, okay, this sounds interesting. I don't believe him. He sounds crazy. But he's opened up a new part of experience that I didn't think about before. Oh, he said this thing, he said that. I'm going to go experience it for myself and find out if he's full of crap. Or, oh, no, what he said works for me. Oh, okay. So this is the thing, is don't just believe me, just use what I say as a self-inquiry to propel yourself in the direction that you want to go from your own experience. That's all I'm saying. So believing me would be the worst thing you could do, because then you're trapping yourself in this illusion. But again, you wanted to trap yourself. This is people, I want to believe this guy named Seth, and then now I've got this little thing, I've got this belief over here, and I think I'm me because I'm believing a Seth who really exists. Oh yeah, see, this is the game. This is you getting back into the game. So you've got to know. When you know and you can break through all those beliefs, and now you understand how this knowing is working, then now you become super powerful. You do kind of whatever you want.
All right. So, what do you think about the evolution of robots and AI? Where do you reckon that's going to go?
So, just again, to reiterate, the only being that is conscious is consciousness. Mm-hmm. So Seth is not conscious. Okay. Seth is content occurring in consciousness. Seth is a collection of thoughts, images, feelings, a little backstory that consciousness is knowing, and then fooling itself to thinking that it's an existent Seth in a physical material world. So Seth isn't conscious, and these robots aren't going to be conscious. So the robots, you're not going to make consciousness in a robot. This is impossible. The robots are occurring in consciousness. They're made out of consciousness. So the robots aren't going to be conscious. So what's going to happen, right? And make these robots, and I really do believe that we're going to merge with this technology. I mean,
yeah,
it's already in my pocket. I mean, it's already, I don't have an Apple Watch or anything like that, but it's already now on our wrists. This stuff is on our ears. Now get earbuds and put them in your ears. Okay, well, what's coming next? Little pills that you can swallow that have cameras in them, right? Just look around. What's coming next is, the neural link. We're going to merge with this technology, because the technology is a way it's providing a whole different set of limits that we can explore. And it seems like we want to explore this. Like, we really enjoy the connection technology, the data on demand. Like, we really enjoy this. So it seems like we're going to just push this. Yeah. And I could just see, like, if you're pretty much a cybernetic organism, I mean, you're not really going to be able to explore outer space until you're pretty much a cybernetic organism, because you can't survive the radiation. So as a human, So if you want to explore the galaxy, if you want some, and I do kind of want this Star Trek universe, right? It's a cool playground. So you're going to have to become cybernetic. You're going to have to become, in the illusion of this physical reality, right? The inorganic kind of materials, you're going to have to become like that inorganic to live in that inorganic interspatial region. So I can see that that's what's going to happen, because if we want to build spaceships and fly around, you're either humans that would be living in space for a long enough time would evolve to deal with the radiation, and we become something else. We wouldn't be human anymore. We'd be some weird thing, or we're going to sort of give up the biological limitations that would preclude us from living out there. And that necessarily means that you're going to be a cybernetic organism. You're going to be basically a machine. But it's not like the reality of it, or the actuality of it, is not like you're a human that's giving up your humanness and then putting on all these implants. No, it's consciousness is saying, okay, these were once humans, and now I'm knowing them as robots or cybernetic organisms. So, and it's not like this is actually happening in a physical reality. It's already happening. It's already happened. It's done. It's already happened. It's already there. It's just that it's right here. And we'll call this the future. It's right there. But in the actuality, it's in the now of eternity. It's in the singularity. And so we're here in the singularity. We want to know getting to over here, space travel and all that stuff, and that's going to mean being a cybernetic organism. That means, how do we know that? Well, we just keep walking along our infinite conscious singularity until we know that experience. That's what's really happened, is that you're going to know your way to it. Ignore yourself while you're doing that. Think you're a human doing all this stuff. Think that you're really evolving. Go through all this agony of, are we giving up our humanity and all this stuff? You're going to know all that stuff, and then be able to leave the earth and explore the rest of your infinite being that looks like planets and stars and things out there, but that's really you. It's really you.
Yeah. I often think about how we can zoom into anything or out of anything forever. And so, a universe on my fingertip and such.
Yeah. Alan Watts, I don't know if you listen to him. I used to think, but after I started listening to him, he's really on point. He used to live right up here.
Wow.
Right by Montana. So he is pretty cool, and he I think he mentioned that, like, you could zoom in or zoom out of anything forever and ever and ever. It's infinite. You can't. There's no bottom to it. So it is fascinating, and it's funny to think. It's like we have this perspective that, well, we're at the default scale, right? This is the default scale, right? But not for an amoeba, right?
Yeah.
Not for a blue whale, right? To a blue whale, we probably look tiny. Or maybe not that tiny. They eat krill, so tiny krill are like, right, nothing.
To a 7-foot guy, we probably seem quite small.
Yeah. So you assume this is like this default scale here, and it's not, right? So the pattern of interference that you're looking at right now, it changes dramatically at these smaller scales. I used to be in a lab where we did electron microscopy, and so I could zoom in at a 60,000x to things, and they look dramatically different. I mean, partially because I'm using electrons instead of photons to image the things, but they're dramatically different. The patterns change. So you're just looking at pattern. It's consciousness patterning itself and patterning itself and patterning itself infinitely, an infinite number of patterns, and then you assigning meanings to those patterns. consciousness made this thing. It's not, there's no, this means nothing to a dog.
Mm.
It only has meaning to a human that knows this is an iPhone or a rectangle or plastic, right? So it's just a pattern. And then we assign meanings to these patterns. And that's what consciousness is doing. It's the arbiter. It's the creator. So it's like, oh, it's arbitrary that we call this plastic. Yes, it is arbitrary because consciousness is the arbiter that's making the term plastic and knowing that that's plastic. It's the arbiter. And that's where, this is why I love science, is because that's where science goes to refine and update its models. It doesn't go to religion. It doesn't go to belief. And it doesn't go to philosophy. It doesn't go to logic. It goes to experience. It goes to the arbiter. It goes to consciousness. To know what is valid and what is non-valid. Within the game. The game is ignorance. Within this little game of apparent physicality, it's ignorance. It's not the truth. You're ignoring truth to know this ignorance. But within that ignorance, within this little game, okay, what's true in that game and what's false in that game? Well, science is telling you what's true and false in the game. While you're in the game and you're pretending you're a human here, trust me, you're going to do better off with having some science under your belt, knowing what's going on. I mean, you know, if I know from science, like at a certain velocity, I can throw this and I can hit something. You know, if I need to kill that bird to eat him, am I better off listening to somebody that says, well, you guys just say abracadabra and he'll die? And, okay, you're starving. You're going to die if you don't eat that bird. And the scientist comes and says, well, if you use these Newtonian equations, you can throw this at this exact angle with this speed and you'll hit the bird. You'll kill him. You'll eat him. Who are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to the scientist. If you don't listen to scientists, you're going to die.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. It's like, are the scientists all correct? No, their models are provisional. They're not the truth. They're just conceptually true beliefs within this little game that we're playing. And they place that science goes to validate which beliefs are true is consciousness itself, is experience, is the knowing of what is actually occurring. And so that's why science is powerful. It's not perfect because perfection is the consciousness that you're ignoring to play the game of being a scientist. So in order to have truth, you know, these scientists that say, oh, we're uncovering the truth. And no, you're not uncovering the truth. You're playing in the game of ignorance. You're ignoring the truth. So if you want to know the truth, you got to be the truth. But they want to be a scientist. They don't want to know the truth. They want to know conceptually true beliefs so that they can publish papers and live in their ivory towers. And, you know, I mean, it's cool. I mean, if you're on campus and you're a professor with tenure and you got a kick-ass lab, that's a great life. Like, this is a tremendous life. It is super fun. You got these conferences, you do these, everybody, well, this is the funny thing is, in your field, people might know who you are. Oh, wow, that's this big, but out of your field, no scientist knows anybody. You know, it's funny. My professor that I worked with, I asked her about this other scientist in another field. It's like, oh, do you know this guy? Because it's really famous, right? She's like, I never heard of him. So in your little field, in your little niche science field, you might be like this famous scientist there, right? But out of that field, most people, even within science, will never have heard of you. So it's just funny. It's just funny because you're playing this game of being the scientist and having this ego and, oh, you know, I'm important and I published all these papers and I'm really doing something for this world. And so it's funny, but it is a fun, if you're going to choose a role to play in this game of life here, that's a good one. It's a pretty good one. So study hard in school, kids.
I'll think about it.
You know, like if you're in school, study hard because you just have more options, right? The more of this you understand of the game, the more you can play. I'm very limited because I only speak one language. But somebody that speaks 5 languages, it's amazing. When I go to Europe and I hang out with these guys, we can go everywhere. I got one guy, he speaks like German, French, Italian, English, some other things. And another guy, he speaks Polish, Russian, German. So I go with these guys, it's like, I got it covered. Yeah, it's like, okay. But then, see, because I don't know the language, they can play all these tricks on me, you see.
Okay. Yes.
But yeah, it's super powerful. So the more you know, the more you can do. And so these guys can do all kinds of things. And so same thing, if you want to play, if you want to have available to you the broadest choices in the game, then you have to learn a lot of different things. Now, what they say is like, if you learn all this stuff, you won't be the master of any one of them. But yeah, maybe that's true. But if you want to know being the master of something, then you concentrate on that thing. And that's your life. That's what you concentrate on. That's your choice. In the game, you got to make choices. In the game, you are infinite knowing, but in the game, you're pretending that you're not. So you've got to make choices. And so these choices limit you from what you could possibly do. You want to be a master carpenter in Japan? Well, yeah, you start at 5 years old, but then you're not going to be a painter because you're just doing carpentry all the time.
Do you think that if a person establishes themselves enough in consciousness that they would be able to consciously be the carpenter in Japan as much as they are a scientist, and at the same time view from my eyes and your eyes?
Well, see, I don't know because never done it, so I don't know. But what I would say is that knowing through your eyes is made of knowing that it's not knowing through my eyes. So I'm knowing through Seth's eyes, which means I'm knowing Seth over here. And what is Seth made out of knowing? Not knowing out of your eyes. Not knowing out of the guy's eyes next to me. You see, literally the being of that carpenter is knowing that it's not the scientist.
Whoa.
So you can't do it, right?
Dude.
They're made out of knowing they're not each other. That's why I don't think you can do it. But again, this thing's infinite. So maybe there's some way to do it. I don't know. I never found out, never tried, and never I have no desire to do that. I don't even know what that would be like. But if you go online and investigate people that do crazy psychedelics, because they'll be like, yeah, I was knowing through this I was sitting in my couch in my living room, and I was also Abraham Lincoln giving the Gettysburg Address or something. Like, they'll be like, I was knowing these two things simultaneously, or I was knowing, because it's like part of the mind is hanging on, yet you're giving up the mind. So I don't know what you can do with that stuff. It's powerful, though. Be careful.
Maybe there's a guy in Nepal somewhere right now just being both of us. He's just out there like,
Yeah, but see, then I would say, like, I don't know. Have you had like an enlightenment, sort of what they call enlightenment experience? Like, have you become the totality yourself ever?
I don't know. I think I have. Maybe I have.
Okay, so when this happens to me, there's no Seth there's none of this is something. It's just, I can't actually know how to explain it. There would be like no Seth or Carpenter left. Like, I don't even know how you could say like you could know through their eyes at the same time, because I can't even know them as finite objects. You're just consciousness. So I don't even know how to see this whole thing about enlightenment is very hard to even compare because I don't even know what's happening myself. And then each time there's like different facets or elements to it. So, and then again, um, this guy Noel from I think it's Absolute Awareness on YouTube. Uh, he said something that was very smart, and I like what he said. He said that consciousness is infinite, and so it could awaken in different ways from each perspective. So when one perspective is saying, "Well, enlightenment is this; it's this void; it's just nothing." Well, maybe from coming from that perspective, and then from another perspective, they see some other part of it. But I mean, I don't know. The being that we all are is the same being. So in some sense, you all have to end up at the same point. It's just that when you come back here, I don't know how, if you're explaining it differently or not, or what, or maybe you didn't go all the way or whatever. I mean, again, there's different parts of the mind. So I don't know, like, the mind is an extremely complex, infinitely complex activity of consciousness being. So I just don't know what's happening. And so it's like someone saying that enlightenment is this way and not that way, and someone saying it's this way and not that. I just don't know if either they're not going all the way with it or not fully embracing it, or if again it's consciousness just knowing these limits that appear to form these perspectives that are talking about different awakenings or something. I just don't really know what's going on there. And so then you have this sort of, okay, what are you talking about when you talk about enlightenment? Are you talking about being infinite and this all this is just, you just see the totality? Are you talking about that as enlightenment, or are you talking about, okay, that happened to you, and then you come back into the game here, and now you're a awake person. You're asleep as the person. You're ignoring, like right now, Seth is asleep, or consciousness is asleep, knowing through a Seth, or as if he's knowing Seth, he's just not paying attention to consciousness. Like I'm not paying attention to infinite consciousness. I'm paying attention to Seth. So I'm not enlightened in that sense, but I remember waking up and remember, oh my God, this isn't what you thought it was. So this is the thing when people talk about enlightenment. I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking, and then some people they've never been enlightened. They've never actually woken up. They've conceptualized their way to it. They've read Advaita. They've read all these spiritual books for 30 years. They do these self-inquiries, and they come up with a logic. They says it has to be this way. There's no other way it could be. Okay, so they live their life as if all of this is them. But did they wake? No, they didn't. They didn't actually wake up and were just obliterated. So I don't know what people are talking about when they talk about enlightenment. I don't know if they're talking about, like, this little talk here is an intellectual logic game. I'm not, any of the papers that I write or whatever is sort of a logic or a conceptual model of it. It's not it. So you can walk around here with a conceptual understanding of non-duality, but that's not actual. It's not actual. It's occurring within it, and it's cool, like, because these kind of perspectives are very cool people. Because if you follow Rupert Spira, he's very you English guys have a command of the language. You think English might have been invented there or something. So he has a command of the English language, and so he's very precise. And so if you watched like 60 hours of his videos and read his books and then did self-inquiry yourself, you get to this point where you have this conceptual understanding. You get to this point where, like, oh yeah, okay, have an understanding of the framework of non-duality that these people are pointing to. And you'll be a cool person, because then, you know, you'll realize that like all these people that you bump into that are mean to you, it's just you. And you're wanting to know that for some reason. Or you're wanting to know overcoming their, I don't know, grumpiness or something. And then, but this conceptual understanding, to me, this is not enlightenment. It's not, you're not enlightened. Like, to me, enlightenment is, no, this is all gone. You're not going to be human anymore. You're God, you know. That's what happens. And then that's enlightened. But then you realize how stupid this conversation is, right? So who am I talking to here? It's just talking to myself. There's nothing going. I mean, I'm not.
It's crazy.
I'm here as God talking to myself. This is insanity.
Yeah.
Insanity for God and insanity within this game. People would say you're insane for saying that. So it's just insanity both ways.
What do we do? Like, what? I don't know what's going on.
This is what we're. What do we do? Is this is what we're doing?
Whatever we're doing, yeah.
We're doing this again because, you know, I just don't want to face myself right now. It's
yeah, I get that.
It's
I think it's
deep in there.
I think it's the same reason why like teenage boys, they don't want to fall in love, you know, because love is God, right?
Yeah. So it's that vulnerability. Yeah, it's that putting yourself out there. But yeah, if you don't do it, you sort of miss the point of life.
Yeah.
If you're infinite and you're ignoring that infinite to see the finite, so you're ignoring the infinite, and the finite is limited, then the point of life is to know these limitations, is to know the pain, the suffering, the heartbreak. That's the point, is to know that. So I'm not saying the point is to just come here and suffer as much as you can. No. What I'm saying is the point is, as a teenage boy, the point is go out on a limb, put your heart out there. It may work out great, but if it doesn't, the point was to know what that suffering of heartbreak is as a finite being, because you can't know it as an infinite being, as God, right? You know it as it, but it's you can't turn it into a finite object that you can grasp. And that's the thing that's fun here, is that you can grasp this. You can grasp this stuff here. You know what pain feels like as a human. So the point is to experience this stuff as a limited object. So it's like this simultaneous like perfection, because it's like, one, it has to be. You have to have this, because if consciousness is infinite, like I usually say, this conversation has to occur. It has to be part of consciousness' infinite being if consciousness is going to be infinite. I need this exact moment right now. Otherwise, it wouldn't be infinite. So it has to occur.
Whoa.
Then it's also a way for consciousness to not know its totality. So to take a break from itself, it's a way to do that. And it's a way to experience things as the illusion of finite. And it's a way to play and be creative. Like, oh, how creative could I get? Well, infinitely creative. I mean, it's a perfection. It's a perfection. Once you see this, it is magnificent. It is just the most amazing.
Available to everyone. Available, right? Technically, right?
Well, it wouldn't be available to those who are knowing that it's not available to them. If you're like, this will never be available to me, right? If you're knowing the concept, this will never be available to me, then you won't know it. You're the one that's preventing yourself from knowing it. And then the problem is you don't even know you're doing it. You don't even know how to, like, okay, how do I even, there's no you here to be able to do something. Like, there's no little human being here that can willpower themselves to this thing, because there's no human being here right now. You're looking at images that's just consciousness moving in a pattern. And you're saying that this is Seth here as a human being, but he's not. So how can I, as a Seth, do anything to get there? I can't. There's nothing here but the knowing of images, the knowing of sounds. There's nothing but this knowing. So you're already this totality. So you can't do anything to get there. You're already there. That's the problem. That's the issue of it. There's nothing you can do. So if you're not getting there, it's because you don't want to get there. I really wanted to know. I mean, I really wanted to know how the double slit experiment worked. I got everything I ever wanted in life. I come into my house and I'm like, okay, I have everything I wanted. What do I want? I really sat here in this empty house right after I bought it, and I was like, what do I want? I've got everything. My life is sweet. Okay. I want to know how this double slit experiment worked. And I just poured 4 years of my life into it. Every day. Nonstop.
Which experiments?
Meditation, yoga, consciousness work, self-inquiry, papers, setting up laser beams. I mean, I did all the stuff until I had this breakthrough. And then now I see how now I have a model of how it works, which is already sort of described in our physics. And I love it. I think it's on its way to being something that I can share with people and they'll understand. So
that's what this is. Information Paradise is all about. I want to mainstream this because it's what God wants. So.
Yeah, and so that's this is one way to think about information. So people think, oh, information, that's ones and zeros on a hard drive, or it's text on a page. But what is information? What is it? You see, if consciousness is infinite, then it cannot have a form, because a form would limit it to a particular. So consciousness is formless.
Okay.
So you are in this formless consciousness that ignores formlessness to inform it to the illusion of these objects. This is information.
Yeah.
It's not out of formation. It's in the form of a hand. So information is what this conscious singularity is doing. It's playing this little game of ignorance and informing it. That's why when you look at mathematics, such as the Bekenstein-Hawking equation, describing a conceptual singularity, a black hole, and you see information theory in there as entropy, you're like, this singularity, this is why this model's cool. Because a singularity and information theory, it's all linked. Because this is what's happening. There's a singularity, and it's informing content out of its own infinite being. So information theory is mission critical to our physics. This is in all of chemistry. Claude Shannon long ago, there's only one way to have your little internet here. If you didn't have Claude Shannon, you're not going to have computers and things like that, or the internet. So all the information going through these wires and stuff, this is all the same kind of thing. It's all this. It's based on potential and probabilities, and the information theory that's involved in black hole thermodynamics and like Claude Shannon's information theory. So information is a cool name for your channel then, because it is what this ignorance of consciousness is. It's this information. And physicists now, I think there's a physicist, Gates, is it Robert Gates? He's like, yeah, when you look at these very advanced mathematics involving what's going on here in our physics, he's like, you just see information. You see computer code in it. Because, yes, this is what it is. It's information. It's not information like, it's not a simulation. You're not in a computer game here.
I don't.
Okay, so
That's still known.
It's just
as in like
they don't understand that like a simulation, you would need two beings, right? You would need some being here that is occurring, and then that occurrence is then mimicked over here, and then we would be in the mimic, right? So then there's these two things here. So no. There's only this here, these hands here. This is the infinite singularity right here. This is it. You're touching it. There's not something behind these hands that's behind the scenes somewhere. No, the hands are the singularity. This is the singularity. This is zero dimensions here. The dimensionality that appears to give depth here, this is conceptual. This is conceptual interference. So the dimensions that we think of are conceptual. They're not actual. So there's nothing behind the scenes making the information. The information is literally made out of the infinite singularity. So
one maxim I love is one, everything is as infinite as zero or nothing.
Correct. Because see, you could say kind of, and that kind of idea is again getting back to this information theory, because they call it the holographic principle. So it's holographic in nature, just like you could take a two-dimensional holographic film and you could cut it, and then you could shine the light through, and you would see the same image. So like you could have an image of an apple, you shine your light through this, you get this two-dimensional hologram, you shine your light through, and then you get this virtual image of an apple. Oh, this looks 3D. Okay, you could take that holographic film and you could cut it to a small square. You could shine it, and you still get an apple. So just like you could see infinity in a grain of sand, every single concept is really the same concept. You could say there's only one concept repeating infinitely. Everything is the same thing. It's the knowing of these opposites. So when you say, like, if I have a 1 over here, what is a 1 made out of? It's made of knowing that it's not 0.
Yeah.
This is how logic works. This is logic, right? 1 is not 0. 1 is not a 2. 1 is not a 3. 1 is not a 4. Okay, so now I know what a 1 is. It's made out of knowing that's not all these other numbers. If numbers are my basis, right? So this is key, because now everything works like this. Oh, people talk about qualia. I hate that word. It's concepts. There's no qualia here.
Yeah.
So what is red made of? Oh, it's just this qualia. No, red is a concept. Red is made out of knowing it's not green, not yellow, right? I don't know what red is. I don't know. Because it's like 400 nanometers is not 500 nanometers. It's not 600 nanometers. Whatever you want to call red. But whatever red is, it's made out of knowing that it's not all these other colors. And so, well, that seems weird. That seems arbitrary. Yes, it's totally arbitrary. This is what consciousness is knowing. Consciousness is knowing that this is red. Consciousness is knowing that this is up. Consciousness is knowing that this is down. It's the one that created that and then is knowing it. And how is it knowing it? Because it's knowing that this is not all these other things. So these concepts, they work for every single piece of content here. So all content is substantiated out of these concepts, and it's all the same structure. So it's holographic in nature. Once you understand one concept structure, you understand them all, and they're all the same. It's just that the arbiter decides what this finite limit is in opposition to something else. So yeah, when you have a 1 over here and you're like, oh, it's not a 0. Yeah, they're both made out of infinity. This 1 is literally made out of infinity. because it doesn't exist by itself. Without this other half over here, it's not being as a limit. Its beingness is made out of this beingness over here. Well, what's this beingness over here made out of? Knowing that it's not this beingness over here. Well, what's knowing? If knowing is infinite, then they're made out of the infinite. So this is an infinite activity structure. A concept is an infinite activity structure. And so this is why these things, every apparent finite thing is actually the infinite.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are cool things, and it's just really interesting to see like the physics and things that the sages have said or appeared to have said coming together. So you can see they're really starting to point to the same thing now. It's getting really, really close.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to do, you know. But I think what I want to do with this channel is I'm very much an idealist to the extreme, and I don't like anyone telling me different, right? And I reckon everybody can enlighten, blah blah blah, and I reckon 8 billion Jesuses. I'm on that, and so this is what this is about. And so if somebody is suffering right now and they're like, what are we talking about? What can we do? Let's bring them to direct experience right now. So viewer, direct experience, senses, right? Where are the senses being perceived? You'd say the mind, right? Now, how is it that you are knowing the mind? With what are you using to perceive it? That is the awareness.
Yeah, and so the only thing I would just say is that there is no perception. So I don't use perception in my, if somebody wanted to talk to me about, how would I wake up or something, it's like, what could I do? I just think self-inquiry is one of the most powerful ways you could start doing it. And it's kind of what you just started doing, right? It's like, okay, I think I'm perceiving here, right? I think I'm seeing light that's bouncing off of this hand, being re-emitted from it, going across space-time, going into my eyes, creating a neurobiological signal that my brain processes, and then that's converted to something I can grasp in the mind as an image. Okay, well, is that what's really happening? And see, you would inquire, is that how is this, how would I test this? And see, once you start figuring out how you would test this, you come up with the double-slit experiment to test vision. And then when you test vision, you find out, shining light on undetermined objects does not produce known images of them that determine them. The images in the double-slit experiment are not determined at all. So shining light on an undetermined slit object does not produce a known image that determines it, thus falsifying perception. There's no perception. Because if I'm holding up one finger or two fingers, right, and you're saying light is shining on them, determining a known image of two fingers, well, the double slit experiment is showing you that I'm holding up two fingers, but you're seeing 10 fingers. You're seeing an undetermined finger pattern in the double slit experiment. So it's saying that your little idea of seeing two fingers here from light shining on is totally false. It doesn't happen that way. So there is no perception. So now you start really inquiring, okay, then how does it work? If there's no if the double slit experiment is showing me that I'm not seeing objects from light that's shining on them, then how am I seeing them? I got to be seeing them some way because I got 2 fingers, I got 10 fingers. Okay, I can know the difference. I know I'm seeing objects here, but I'm not seeing them from light shining. This is shocking. I walked around I went to an optician. What did I go to an optician for if I'm not seeing from light? Right? You start to see the insanity of this, right? So it's like, okay, If I'm not seeing from light shining on things, I've got to come up with a way to see it. And this is where the inquiry starts leading you down this path. You start inquiring. You start getting really curious. That's what I advise people to do. If you want to wake up, if you want to figure out what all this is, start inquiring. The physics route could be hard. It took me 4 years. And in fact, I started in 2013, so now it's 2020. So now it's going on 7 years. I mean, I hit the answer in 4 years, but I couldn't figure out how to convey it. It took me another 3 years. So, and people would say, you're still doing a terrible job. But the physics aspect of it might be hard. So start from a different way, just with yourself. Just, okay, I'm knowing images of my body. Okay. I'm a body, that's what I am. I'm a human being, I'm a physical body. I'm knowing images of my body. Am I an image of my body? If I close my eyes, I'm still here, even though I see no image of my body. I didn't disappear, even though I closed my eyes. So I can't be the image, because I didn't disappear when I closed my eyes. And you can keep going with that for a while. That doesn't convince you. Okay, well, I'm not, okay, so maybe I'm not the body. Maybe I'm not the image of my body. I don't want to deal with this right now. Let's go on a different one then. Okay, maybe I'm a thinker. I'm the thinker. So maybe I'm a thinker. That's what I am. I'm really a thinker. And I'm thinking all these thoughts, and that's what I really am. And then you realize, like, okay, I knew the thought right now. I'm hungry. Okay, and I know enough that I got to pay my bills. All right. I know another thought. Oh, that's green over there. Okay. Well, now, was there a space in between the thoughts, or was it one continuous thought? I'm hungry, I'm green, this is green. Oh, no, there was a space. Okay, so if your thoughts, or if you're the thinker and you're thinking thoughts, and there was one thought and a space, and then another thought and space, did you disappear between those thoughts? No, you didn't. You knew the space. You knew there was a thought, and then you were knowing the space, and then you're knowing the thought, and then you're knowing the space, and then you're knowing the thought. It's like, okay, I was continuous. So whatever I am, I was knowing the whole thing. But the thoughts came and went, but I didn't come and go. So I'm not a thought either. I can't be this thinker. If I'm these thoughts, like, that's impossible. Then you start realizing, like, no, I'm knowing these thoughts. I'm not thinking thoughts. I'm not the thoughts. I'm knowing thoughts. Thoughts are there, and then I kind of run into them. I'm knowing this one, and then I know not knowing any thoughts, and now I'm knowing this thought, and then now I'm not knowing thought, and then I'm this knowing of thoughts. Wait a minute. I was knowing images, and I'm knowing thoughts. Maybe I'm knowing itself. Maybe that's what I really am. I'm this knowing. Whoa. Then you start to think, like, this is weird. This knowing. What is this knowing? And you try to look for this knowing. And you can't find it because it's not an object. It's that which is making the illusion of the objects and then knowing them. But it's not an object itself, and this is why you can't find it. Scientists will never, no matter how much they claim, they will never find consciousness in a brain. It's not going to locate it. It's not an object. The brain is occurring in the mind, in consciousness.
I'm glad you said that.
So yeah, they I think there was a new article. It's like, oh, we may have tracked consciousness down to this little part of the. No, this is hilarious to me. This is hilarious because, see, what they're not doing is understanding what knowing is. I mean, just you could say, like, okay, I'm knowing. Whatever this knowing is, maybe the knowing's trapped inside. We're not going to pay attention to the knowing. The knowing, we don't know. We're just going to put a question mark and a circle of an unknown dimension to it. So this knowing is going to be over here. We'll just have a circle here. We'll put a question mark, and we'll say, I don't know what this knowing is. I don't know how big it is, and I don't know how small it is. I have no idea. So we're going to ignore that, and we're just going to look over here at the object. Okay, this knowing is knowing this finger object at a distance of half a meter. Okay. The knowing is knowing. It's in the now. The object at 1 meter is in the past because it took time for light to traverse that space-time to get to the knowing. So this is known. It's a known image. But this is knowing. Consciousness is knowing. Okay, so let's just shrink the distance by half. Is this still known or is it knowing? Well, it's still known. It still took a quarter of a meter to get to knowing. So it's still in the past as known. This is still knowing, and this is known. Okay. What distance would I have to bring the known to get to knowing? Think about it now. That's going to define this dimension. Because if I get to here, it's still known. Because if this is part of knowing over here, I got to get to that knowing. This part of knowing, if this knowing had any dimensionality to it, if it was anything other than 0 dimensions, part of it would be known. So if this part of knowing, if knowing was 10 centimeters across, then this part of knowing would be known. It wouldn't be knowing anymore. Oh, so we got to make knowing smaller. We got to make it smaller, smaller. So what dimension is knowing? It's no dimensions. It can't have any dimensions because if it had any dimensions to it, part of it would be in the past. It wouldn't cease to be knowing. It would be known. So consciousness is an infinite, dimensionless singularity. It has no dimensions because if it had any dimensions, it wouldn't be knowing. But it has to be knowing because you're knowing these words right now. Knowing is occurring. You cannot deny that you are listening to content right now. You're knowing experience. You're knowing that which is happening. That's what's occurring. So there has to be knowing. Okay, well now if there has to be knowing, and knowing can't have dimensions, it's an infinite dimensionless singularity. Infinite because something with no dimensions, you can't limit it. You can't touch it. You can't grab it. You can't box it up. You can't do nothing to it. So it's by definition peace because you can't disturb it. you see, you can't hit it, you can't blow it up, you can't do nothing to it. It's in no dimensions. It's totally escapes all of your doing anything to it. So this is the thing, like once you start these little inquiries, see this is just a little playtime here that we've had. So we're just playing around here, but these little inquiries, you start to get these little aha moments. And if you get enough of them, it might push you over the edge where the whole thing just opens up. But I don't know, I mean, we're all being pretty ignorant here. So it takes a lot to break out of the game. It's hard to break out of this game, and then you realize why it's so hard. It's because you want the game. This is what you want. So
yeah,
only God would have the power to be able to fool itself. This is it. This is the level that you're going up against. Your own infinite intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a formidable foe. Very formidable. You're
kind of want to ignore it, right? Ignore how.
Yeah, this is fun. It's fun. This is good times here. So, yeah, the thing is like, enlightenment, this should be something that you want to do and not, I shouldn't even say that. Shoulds and coulds and musts and all that. Do whatever you want, but if you're going to suffer a lot if you're forcing this on yourself. If you're like, I must meditate every day. Like, this is not the way to go about it. Like, you're really not going to get anywhere, and you're just going to explore like It's not a dead end, but it's like almost like a cul-de-sac of life. You're just gonna have this life of frustration. If you want to know that, great, do it. I don't want to know it. It's crazy. Once you kind of wake up, you start seeing all the things you were doing in frustration, and you're like, well, this is just stupid. Like, why was I doing this? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to behave like that anymore. Life just starts becoming magical when you I don't know, when you start waking up. It becomes magical. So yeah, self-inquiry is pretty powerful, and I think that's really something you should try, because it's easier than meditation, because you could just sit there all day and just, well, what about this and what that? How would this? And you just keep asking, you just keep inquiring as to what you really are. And one day you'll question it, and you're not going to get like a little cute little answer of like what we were just talking about. You're going to get, boom, it's just going to hit you. You're just going to get a shocking realization. And it's pretty powerful.
The self-image is pretty powerful as well, So like people, they'll probably try and implement asking self-inquiry, but most people don't want to ask certain questions,
Yeah, so the game of it, and I see this a lot. Someone will start down this. They're like, "Oh, I want to know, Seth. This sounds interesting." Talk, and I'll get into it with them for like 1 minute, and it's like you can see the fear rise up in them, and you can see like, "Oh, I'm about to find out the truth here," and they just deflect the conversation, and they know, like, deep down, I can't go this way, because that's the death of me. That's the death of all this little story that I had about myself. That's going to kill that. And I want to be a housewife with 2 kids and go to the grocery store and have my little life here and have these problems. And I don't know if my husband's cheating on me. And they want that. You see, and so they don't want it. This happens to me a lot, and I'll just start getting on these conversations, and then it's just, yeah, let's just stop. Let's not talk about that. It's just something I want to ignore. So people do this with meditation, self-inquiry, all this spiritual work. They kind of get into it to get close to it so they can keep it at bay. If I'm close to it, I can keep it. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Well, if you don't really want to wake up, the most powerful thing you could do is go on a spiritual quest.
Get spiritual. Dude, that's me.
If you don't want to wake up, the most powerful thing you could do is going on a quest to try to wake up. Why is that the most powerful thing you could do to ignore? Because you're creating the illusion of a person that's going on a quest.
Oh.
On that quest, you're like, I have to be a real human being to go on a quest. I'm on this quest. I must be a real human being doing this. And so being on the quest
doesn't include
is what prevents you from seeking, by definition. Seeking, what is seeking made out of? Not finding.
Yeah, dude.
So if you're seeking, you're not finding. So you could go on this quest, and you could go on this quest for 40 years because you don't want to wake up. So you keep it close. Oh yeah, I'm Mr. Spiritual Guy. Look, I got my 3 Buddhas here and these singing bowls, and yeah, let's see how spiritual I am. I've been on this quest for 40 years. Yeah, because you've been hiding. By being on that quest, now you've hidden from yourself. And see, I think this is, you could say I got lucky or whatever, but I didn't know about spirituality. I didn't know about non-duality. I was a physicist. I was a molecular biologist, right? So I'm just doing physics. I wasn't on the quest to find myself or this kind of thing. This blindsided me. I got accidental awakening here. This is not planned. That's what I'm saying. I don't really know that much about Buddha and all this stuff. I've learned stuff since then because I've gone to some of these conferences, but I accidentally fell into this rabbit hole. Like, I took the red pill by mistake, and then pow! I didn't realize how deep the rabbit hole went. I didn't realize how it goes all the way. So this is the thing, is people will say everybody wants to wake up and be Jesus or whatever, but they don't want that. So I do think it's going to get interesting with Neuralink and becoming cyborgs and things like that, because now in the game, right? In the game, we're these humans that have a neurochemistry, and now you're if everyone on the planet was plugged in with this Neuralink, and some hacker like went in there and gave everybody some huge DMT awakening experience or something like that. Like, what would happen? Like, you could hack everyone, and then, let's just throw everybody on 30 grams of psilocybin mushrooms, right? Like, oh my God, like what you could potentially do, right? You could wake everybody up at the same time. So, I mean, I just don't know what it's all gonna bring and what you're gonna be able to do with it. I think you're at this point where you can see the light of dawn of a new age, like streaming up over the horizon, but you can't see past that horizon. Like, you could just see the light of dawn coming, but we just can't see over the curvature. And I can't. And here's another thing: is I can't really think about it or try to see what it is, and then I don't want to, because if I could, it'd be in the past. It'd be known. If I could know exactly what was going to happen, it would have happened. And so we want the game. We want the surprise. We want what's going to happen? Are we going to become cyborgs? Are we going to blow each other up? Are we going to fry our atmosphere? Are we going to replant all the trees and to save the Earth? Are we going to go to another planet? Are aliens going to come down here and visit? We want the surprise of it.
It's going to be fun to watch.
That's what we're doing. This is a great spectator sport. So the cool thing, though, is, you wake up and you can be part of the game. You can do things in life to really have an impact on the game. Or you could be a bench warmer, sit on the bench the whole game, and that's cool too. Yeah, you saw the whole game. You saw it from a different perspective. But you could be the one taking shots on goal.
Like Steve Jobs said, if you push in, something's going to pop out. He said that in type in Steve Jobs' philosophy on life. Everybody. Okay. Yeah. If he said that, then it's true.
Well, remember, all statements, even the ones I'm making here, are limited and are by definition the ignorance of that totality of truth. So have fun here, play around in the game, and do what you want to do. I find it, once you kind of wake up, you kind of want to be nice and kind to others and live from abundance and just enjoy and celebrate life. It's funny because, now just the smallest things are like, like there's a bug crawling around over there. Like, he's just so cool to me now. It's like, dude, you're the coolest little guy. A little like robot like walking around. You guys are looking for robots and things. Go look at some insects. They're like little robots. They're amazing.
On the forest floor.
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah. Just go look at the stuff, and I'll go outside and just I've got all these little jumping spiders in my grass, so I'll just go outside in my backyard. I'll sit under the lemon tree, sit on that tree, and if you don't really see anything, right? But if you stare at this grass for about 5 minutes, just stare right at it, you start seeing them walking around and jumping around. They're perfectly camouflaged and they're crazy looking, and then you start just really paying attention, and you'll start seeing them and their movements, and they're all jumping around and like interacting with each other, and like they're cool because they have an iridescence to them, because there's a diffraction going on when it's like hitting their I don't even know if they really have exoskeletons. I don't know about arachnids that much, but whatever their I'll say exoskeleton is it's got some sort of diffraction gradient going on. So it's refracting the light so that you see like these iridescent patterns in them, and they're just like little jewels like walking around. And so I'll just sit there for hours. And,
Just don't know why they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a TV or anything, so this is what I do.
Yeah, man.
But so I'll just sit there and watch those guys for a while, and I think this is kind of consciousness just sitting here looking at its own being through the lenses of each of us. Because there's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to do. What else are you gonna do? So, do what you want. Take your power back if you want to. Wake up. Don't fall asleep. Play all these games. It's all a perfection.
Whatever you're going to do is what God wants you to do, and you are not God.
I would just say, look into who you really are, because you are that God. You are that infinite consciousness. That's what you are. You're just ignoring yourself, and you're playing around in your own being.
I think we'll end it there.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure. I love talking about these things, and
So do I.
I don't know how close to Shropshire you are, but if you are, go see Rupert. He's got courses and things, and
Yeah,
you've watched his videos.
I've seen him, and I've talked to him actually. Got a photo of him. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. He was at the SAND conference. I didn't go to his lectures. At the SAND conference, all the people that I knew about, I didn't go to see their lectures because I already seen their lectures on YouTube and stuff. I tried to find like the people nobody heard about, like these there are a lot of different seminars going on. I was trying to find like all the cool perspectives that nobody's heard of. So I spent my time doing that. So I didn't really even get to. I saw him like hanging around eating dinner and stuff, but I didn't go to his talk.
You saw him?
Hmm?
You saw him?
Oh yeah. We were there I was there for 5 days.
What?
SAND is cool. If you're interested in science and non-duality, and you're in Europe, there's one in Italy, so you don't have to come all the way out here. So you can go to the one in Italy. I don't know exactly when it is, but and it's smaller. I think it's like 200 people. The one in San Jose, we had over 1,000 people there. It was crazy. It was huge. It was overwhelming. It was just huge. But this is a very good venue, and I haven't looked at other ones, so I don't really know, because I'm not in this community, so I don't really know of other conferences like that. But this one, I had a blast. This was really cool. It was. I highly recommend it. If you're interested in non-duality, if you're interested in spirituality or any of this stuff, take a look at it. There's all kinds of stuff there. More than you would even know or understand. Like I went there and I didn't even know the stuff was, people were doing this stuff. So I highly recommend it if you are curious. Even if you're on a journey to ignore yourself.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Seth. It's been a pleasure.
Well, take care, and I hope your channel's very successful.
Thank you very much.